I was in my town when ISIS came. They killed about 50% of my town, and because of this, we decided to leave the town.
At the moment, we're living through a global refugee crisis. There are more people displaced by conflict worldwide than at any time since the Second World War.
It's very distressing for people like me to see that there is no cohesive response from the government. These people are being traumatized. They're having to deal with things that they shouldn't have to deal with.
But seriously, I don't wish this to anybody.
Risking their lives, millions of people are fleeing their war-torn homes in search of a better life. People from all over the world are uniting on social media to offer support, guidance and refuge for those in need. Millennials are using this tool in any way they can, even filling the resource gap where governments are failing to help. So is social media creating a power shift for the refugees? Is it helping?
I think social media has given a kind of power to refugees that they might not have had in the past. And I think not only for the refugees, but for people who want to help them as well in Europe. It's allowed the rest of us to find out what's going on much more easily, to organise forms of support for the refugees very quickly across, what can be quite large geographical areas.
Without the smartphone, you don't have social media, so you can't communicate with your parents. And social media, of course, can help you to feel relaxed. So every day, I was talking with my mother and said, okay, everything is good, just keep wish me luck and keep wish me the best wishes in my journey and everything will be good.
Like many, the horrendous images of the refugee crisis splashed on newspapers around the world spurred Leslie, a mother of 2 small boys, to offer her help in whichever way possible.
So when I really became interested in the refugee crisis, obviously the first thing I did was try and find Facebook pages of like-minded people, pages where people were looking for a donation and requesting help for certain things. So just a way for me to keep in touch with what was happening. I suppose I trust that information.
There are several benefits to spreading information via social media. The most obvious one is it's just a very quick and efficient way to get bits of practical information out there. That's why refugees themselves have used it so much. But it's also a really good way to counter people's misperceptions. If the media, for example, has a particular bias, it might be that there are lots of newspapers trying to claim that refugees are all coming to Europe for the wrong reasons, or that there are good refugees and there are bad refugees. That if people are able to share the stories of people's real lives on social media, you can bypass that.
I'm 17 years old. I was studying in high school. My father is a judge. My mother is a chemistry teacher. We just was living normal life.
With the country ravaged by war, Mohammed was forced to flee his home and family, deciding to make the long and arduous journey across Europe alone, in the hope to safely reach his brother in Germany.
We went by the sea and we make up the boat and everything is okay, and we just heard a shouts and the sounds of women, and we saw a boat that was drowning. The waves was too high and the boat drowned, and in that night there's 2 women and 2 kids died in that night.
Mohammed's boat was one of the hundreds that are monitored and assisted by Leslie and other volunteers, keen to ensure smugglers and coast guards don't leave refugees in danger.
Tonight I've signed on shift with United Rescues. We're a Facebook group, so the Facebook group basically takes SOS calls from refugees crossing the Aegean Sea. Everything happens via Facebook apart from the phone calls. So within the group itself, we have an admin who takes charge of the cases, and I would be the person that makes the phone calls to the Coast Guard. For me, being a mum of 2 and who can't volunteer on the ground, I thought this would be an ideal opportunity to do something and actively helping people.
We took about 5 hours in the sea to get to the island, and when we get the island, we just start walking. We walked about 6 kilometers and we sleep on the ground because we were so tired, and we just woke up after 2 hours and the Coast Guard just waking up us, and they said, let's go to the police station. At the Serbian border, we tried to cross the border many times because they were a Hungarian police control on the border. But in the final, we couldn't manage to cross the border, and we continued to the camp. And the camp is, I can't find a word to describe this camp, really. The buses and the taxis there, they said that we can't take you without paper. But if you said that we will double the money, they will said, okay, we need paper or 200 euro. There is a policeman come to us and said, do you need help? We said, okay, of course. He said, okay, buy 6 bottles of brandy, wine, and I will get your papers. In Austria, we were about 40 persons in a van. We just was standing up in the whole way. Before Vienna, about 40 kilometers, the smugglers dropped us and said, continue by alone. From there, the police come and said, you should be a refugee here, you should stay in Austria. I said, I don't want. I want to go to Germany to my brother. And he gave me a bunch and pushed me to the wall. And I said, okay, I will do anything, just don't hit me again. We couldn't communicate with anyone because we gave them our mobile phones. He just took me to the police station and grabbed my hand, gave us a kind of, I don't know, fingerprint. And some people said, no, we don't want to stay in Austria. So they put them in the jail and sent them to Hungary. They were a policeman. We asked him about what will happen now. He said, nothing for free. It's euro. We said, okay, how much you want for just give us a normal information. He said, okay, you are 5 people, 100 euro. After that, they drove us to a camp, big camp nearby Vienna. And from there, I escaped alone from the camp. And after that, by the bus, came here to Germany to my brother.
Social media also provides a huge help to people who are left behind in war zones. The normal, more standard methods of communication are disrupted when there's a war. So having friends and relatives outside of the country who can get in touch with you by phone, by messaging services, by social networks, means that you have got access to a much wider range of information about what's happening in your own country. You're also told about, if you're thinking about leaving as well, whether you should follow the journey that people before you have done or whether that's actually turned out to be very dangerous and whether you should try different routes.
I have a lot of relatives that arrived here and I ask them how, and they tell me that take this smuggler, is the better than the others, and from Greeceland go there and there and there. In the way to here, I just communicate with my parents and with my whole family, with social media, of course. But when I arrived here, I communicated with Skype with all my parents. I saw them again. It was a good thing.
So, do you think without social media, the public would have created such a support for refugees?
I think social media isn't a kind of magic wand that makes everything better by itself, but what it's done is it's enabled people to communicate and build support much more quickly than in previous eras. I think in Europe at the moment you've got this real tension between a system that is sort of very, very harsh towards the refugees and lots of ordinary people who are trying to find ways to challenge that and to build links with the refugees and to help them.